Excellent. And first game, of course, that a lot of people have circled around the area is a team with a local flavor in a big way. Two teams, Batavia and Marmion, squaring off. We mentioned that, a non-conference battle at Marmion on Friday. And guys, it's going to be a test right away for Noel Gasperi, his junior season getting started. It's always tough to be a sophomore quarterback, and now he's got a chance after a full season under his belt to get things going for the Bulldogs. But Marmion is going to be a stiff test. Do you see Batavia having a shot to keep it close and or winning that game in week one?
For Batavia, I think that front seven defensively, man, all that work that they've done in the weight room and everything they've done between last year and this year will come to the forefront right away, because Marmion is a big, powerful team with their offensive line. They've got a handful of offensive linemen between 250, 300 pounds. And then just their backfield, even their running backs can run some guys over. All three of their top running backs are 200 pounds plus, big, strong, bruising backs. So for Batavia, it's, I think, going to come down to just how much they got done in that weight room and whether that front seven can keep from being bulldozed by Marmion. If Batavia can keep the game close late, Batavia does have fewer two-way players. Marmion's still a program that uses quite a few of their top guys on both sides of the ball. So you'd like to think, if you're Batavia, that conditioning-wise late in the game, if Batavia can stay in the game, they have a chance to maybe make a few more plays down the stretch. But they've got to be there, so we'll see.
Yeah, the good news certainly is that the entire front seven is all back, and they've got some size, especially on the line with Jeff Hartzell and Brian Wilson and Cole Gardner. And Gardner's also a guy that Coach Gasperi was talking about at tight end, being a real big guy and getting Noel some bigger targets to throw to. Certainly stopping Marmion is the test, but you got to move the ball too. And I know fans around here were waiting for that to happen last year, and it didn't come to the success rate that they wanted to see. So I think you drawing Marmion in the first week is a tough thing to do with trying to move the ball. But that's what you want to see right off the bat, is that they can get something consistent and go for balance. I know they've been big on balance here in recent years, but last year kind of struggled with that. I mean, Seton was running the ball effectively, but establishing the run with Kaba and with Lindquist, and also getting something out of the passing game, whether you got some big receivers and big tight ends, but that's got to be there too. I know they're feeling good about the defense and where it's at in preseason, but I know they want to see the offense at the same level.
That's a great point, Kevin. The 50-50 style offense of running the ball and passing the ball, you'll be able to do that a little bit more this year. And I think the key too is winning the close games. It seems like it's been the past few seasons where Batavia hasn't been able to pull out the close games, and it's hurt their overall record. And we'll see if they're able to do that in week one. Interesting thing that you mentioned, Jay, before the show is that all five or other schools in the area are going to be starting on the road for week one. And St. Charles East has a tough customer in Carmel. Do you think St. Charles East will be able to come away with a week one road victory, Jay?
It'll be difficult. The good news for East is they showed last year that they can dig themselves a little bit of an early hole in the non-conference. They schedule awfully tough. They've got Carmel week one, Naperville North week two. So, I think if you caught Coach Mike Fields in a particularly candid moment, he'd say he'd probably be pretty happy to split those first two if possible, and then get into the conference schedule where they had a lot of success last year. Coach Fields in his first year last year showed that he can really coach defense. That team last season offensively wasn't particularly productive on the offensive side. They did enough, didn't make a lot of mistakes, but they really won games with their defense. They did lose a couple excellent players, defensive lineman Jonathan Boytilla, and it's going to be probably early in the season, especially with the new quarterback. They're going to have to win with defense again. Carmel's an awfully good program, so if East does pull that out week one, it'll probably be one that is an awfully close game.
How about St. Charles North? They start out on the road as well. Kevin, what are your thoughts on that ball game?
That's kind of a deja vu game against South Elgin. They played them, last year obviously in the regular season with the upset 8, and then again in the playoffs. It was I believe a week 7 or week 8 late season regular season game last year, so it was just a real quick turnaround. North has to replace the whole defense. A little bit of concern at offense too with Jake Bergeron out with a broken finger suffered during summer baseball. They've got their running backs back, a lot of them. Ben Hodges. They're hoping really that Josh Mikas, who we all know from basketball and football too, but they're hoping he can be a little more of a threat on the gridiron and get established as a playmaking receiver. And if not that, at least draw some guys to them to get the other guys open and create some space. But South Elgin's kind of in the same mode. They were a playoff team last year too, and throwing the ball pretty effectively, and they lost some key cogs to their team as well. So I think it'll be a pretty close game. I think North has embraced kind of the going two ways and the getting more versatile players. I think North will win a close one. I think they just have the program is on the upswing and has the depth to do that in week 1.
And then your number 1 team, the Kane Knights, they start on the road as well against Burlington Central, a game that on the surface you'd think Kane should be able to have a cakewalk, but you never know. Obviously, week 1, a long time for coaches to be able to prepare against other teams, so anything can happen. Jay, do you think Kane will be able to get started on the right foot?
I do. I don't think Burlington Central has the team to push a team with as much coming back as Kane has. The Knights like to wing the ball over the place early on in the year. The weather's to their liking, and everyone's fresh. And I look for Kane to score at a nice clip and win that one pretty comfortably.
Now, Geneva has an interesting start to their season. They start out week 1 out in Rock Island, and maybe a chance for the team to bond on the long bus trip out there. Rock Island, a bit of an unknown, and of course, as we talked about, Geneva with a lot of new starters on the offensive and defensive side, an unknown as well. Kind of a coin flip type feel to the game. Kevin, do you have any grasp on how Geneva will be able to come out here in week 1?
You mentioned the travel, and Coach Wasinski was talking about how they're going to be going coast to coast because in week 2 they head over to Morgan Park, which will be a long bus ride in itself as far as getting caught in the gridlock on the highway. But yeah, I mean there's a little bit of unknown there for Rock Island as well. They were kind of calling Geneva the past few years to try to get this game set up, and for whatever reason couldn't get it together. Just the teams had their non-conference series already set. Rock Island has a lot of size, especially at the offensive tackles. Both guys are about 6'4", 6'5", 270, 280. And Geneva, the big thing around camp this year was we don't have the size that we had before. Frank Berwenzi's gone, Brett Shannon's gone. Andrew Mariotti's a pretty big guy at defensive tackle, but they're hoping more to burn people with speed. So it'll be interesting to see how that matches up out west against the Rock size.
Sure. Yeah, the first big size test for Geneva right off the bat. Well, gentlemen, thanks a lot for joining us here on the Preps Insider. Once again, I'm Jim Leo. This has been Jay Schwab and Kevin Drewley, both of the Kane County Chronicle. And stick with us all season long. We'll be your source for football here in the 2010 season and all prep sports. Thanks so much for joining us.